There's a saying that I love. It's do what you love and do it with all your heart. The woods would be very silent if the only birds who sang were those who sang best. And I think of that whenever I sit down to play my keyboard, which is a lovely gift from Peter Dunbar, and it's a real piano. And I practice the piano every night, and I am terrible. And I remember when I got my first piano. I was 8, and we had just moved into the new house, and my mother got a Chickering piano, an absolutely beautiful, beautiful piano. And I practiced, and I loved that piano, and I loved making music, and I was lousy at it, just terrible. And my mother uh, took me to, well, I started out with Mrs. Harding. I did my piano lessons with Mrs. Harding, Mildred Harding. And she had two huge pianos in her room. And whenever she taught little children, and I was 8, she would sit right next to them with her arm around them, and she would show them the notes. My piano lessons were on Monday, and my mother believed that Monday was the day that she was going to give me liver and onions for lunch because she thought that was good for my blood. And the liver she would broil was about the texture of a retread you put on a car. And then she would brighten it up with chicken fat, schmaltz, and big, thick slices of red onion. And I would eat these on Monday, and then I would go to my piano lesson smelling like a rotten delicatessen. And I would sit at the piano, and Mrs. Harding would sit at the other piano in the room as far away as she could from me. And I never understood why all the other children got hugs and I didn't. And, and I had recitals with Mrs. Harding, and usually my mother didn't bother coming because my mother didn't want me to think that I was important. So she would make me go to my recitals all by myself. And I worked very, very hard on my recitals because I really, really loved playing the piano. And I remember one uh, recital where I got done with what I was playing and I turned to take a bow. And my father had actually come to the recital, but I saw him in the backyard throwing up because my father had ulcers. So that was when I got the first hint that I wasn't going to be a world class pianist. And then when I was 12 or 13, I I got my very first real dress. I got my very first real dress. I had worn hand-me-downs up until then because my mother said I didn't deserve to have a new dress. So when I think I was 12 or 13, I got a lovely, lovely pink dress with white bric-a-brac that I thought was beautiful, and it was my very own. No one had ever worn it before me. And I got all dressed to go to my recital. And I said to my mother, "When are you coming?" And she said, "I'm not going." And I said, "Why?" Because I was hoping that she would come to that recital and she would see that I was wonderful. Because at that recital, I had the two starring roles. I was the opener, and I played a duet with Eleanor Brower, our most famous delicatessen in Toledo, their daughter, Eleanor Brower. And we played March of the Toy Soldiers. And I also closed the recital. I was the finale. So I was the star. And I had worked very, very hard. Remember, I started when I was 8, and I had worked very hard. And I said to my mother, "When are you coming to the recital?" And she said, "I'm not coming." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "What have you done for me lately?" So I walked all alone in my brand new dress. I walked the 2.5 miles, it was at least, to Mildred Harding's studio, and I played my songs and didn't make a mistake. And I can remember standing and having them all clap and thinking, well, I'm really not that good because I knew that if that I wasn't very good because my mother didn't think so. After that recital, my mother decided to change piano teachers, and I went to a woman named Mrs. Shell, and she was another mile away, but I never minded. And it was in the Presbyterian church, And I just worked so hard. But Mrs. Shell decided she was going to try to teach me theory. And I was just such crap at the piano. I was able to do something by rote, but if you had to teach me why, it was hopeless. And so she said to my mother, "Why are you wasting your money on her? She's never going to learn to play the piano." And so my mother stopped my lessons. And I continued playing, and it sort of dwindled away. But, but I loved the piano, and I loved music. And when my mother died, my sister asked me what I wanted from the house. And I said I wanted my piano. And my sister said, "It will cost you less to buy a piano in California than it will for me to ship that piano, which has fallen apart, uh, from Toledo, Ohio." And I said, "I want my piano." And the piano came. And I had my piano in my house, and I played my piano every single night. And you need to know that my talent has not improved. My ability has not improved. I am terrible. My timing is off. My expression is off. But I love playing my piano, and I love playing it. I love playing it. And when I decided to move to London, even I knew that I couldn't take, what was it? I was 80, a 72-year-old piano across the ocean, although I would have if I could have. And I was going to just give it away. And then my friend Beth Lemke said to me, "Oh, don't give it away." She said, "There are so many children that would like to buy an old clunk of a piano." And I said, "This isn't a clunk of a piano. This is my piano. This is my beautiful piano." And Beth said, "Well, I think I know somebody who might want the piano." So a young man came over who said, "My daughter is just taking piano lessons, and I would like to buy this piano." So I said, "Okay, you can have the piano for $100." And it had real ivory keys and ebony keys. And I love that piano. I don't believe in loving things, but I love that piano. And the man came to pick it up with his little girl. And I will never forget this little girl, because when I was a little 8-year-old, stinking of liver and onions, and I got that piano, I had very big feet that I had to wear in orthopedic Oxfords. I had braces on my teeth. My hair was limp and straggly, and I was clothed in my cousin Sandy's hand-me-downs, which my cousin Sandy looked beautiful in them, but I was not blonde and adorable. I was a little dark-haired, skinny little girl with a big tummy, and looked I looked like a remnant. And that was in the year that my mother bought me the piano. So when I sold this piano to the man and he brought his little girl over, I looked at this little girl, and this little girl had braces. She was about 8 years old. She had straggly hair, and she was not a pretty little girl. And I thought, I've given the piano to the right person. I stopped playing the piano after that. Although I had a keyboard, it was a small keyboard and it never resonated like a piano. When I lived in Pacifica, I played my piano every night. But then Peter Dunbar blessed me with a keyboard that is a full key keyboard. And I play every night. And again, the music that I play is beginner music, and it's real beginner music. I can't get past John Thompson's first grade book. I can't do it. But I love it. And that was when I thought, for all of you listening, why must we be professional in everything we do? Why can't we just do it because we love it? So I'm going to say the quote again, because I do that with my piano when I play the piano. Do what you love best. Don't worry about what other people think. Don't worry about the quality of what you're doing, because the quality is only what it means to you. Do what you love best. Remember, the woods would be very silent if the only birds who sang were those who sang best. And thank you for joining me for my thought on this lovely Thursday.